for 10-2. Okay, we got through the angles and the intercepted arcs, and then the intercepted arc equals the central angle. Okay, we finished all that. We said at the bottom, that is arc measure. Notice when we're doing arc measure, it will have the little m. Okay, however, look at the bottom of your page. Circles with the same center, but different radii, are called concentric circles. Concentric circles. Circles that have the same center but different radii. Okay? So, if this radii were 2 and the longer one were 4, and let's say the angle in here is 90 degrees. I'm just going to draw this so you see it's separate. Okay? And you have, those are not great circles, but you get the idea. Okay? If this is 90 degrees and this is 90 degrees, what do you know about this, the measure of this arc? 90 degrees, and the measure of this arc is 90 degrees. But you could see where that would not be very helpful if you're talking about running around that lap, running around the track. Because if you're running around the inside of the track versus on the outside of the track, it's very different. The length is different. The measure of those arcs would be the same. Because they would have this, in that track problem, they would have the same radius. So the angle would be the same. So the measures of the arcs would be the same. However, it's not very useful because there's no way you can tell me that that is the same as that. Okay? Yes, their measures are the same. However, what we're going to look at today is their lengths are not the same. Okay? So, we use measure. The measure of the arc equals the measure of the angle. However, the lengths obviously would be different. Okay, so that's where we move to arc length. So the biggest thing you need to see here, okay, is that there's no little m. Okay, so if there's no m, then you're talking about the length of the arc. If there's the little m, then it's the measure of the arc. The measure of the arc will be in degrees because it's the same as the angle. So a 90 degree, if this is 95, then the measure of arc AB is 95. That's what we did yesterday. Does that make sense? Okay, but the length of it, now we're going to look at how to find the length. The length of it will be based on the circumference of the circle. Right? What is the circumference? Pi times diameter, right? But I'm not looking at the whole circle, I'm only looking at part of the circle. What part of the circle would I be looking at from A to B? Almost 1/4. If it were 90 degrees, it would be 1/4, right? Because 90 over 360. It would be 1/4 of the circle. So what we're going to do is 95 over 360. So our formula is arc length equals the circumference times n over 360. Okay? N is the angle measure. N equals central angle
What's over 360?
or measure of arc.
What's over 360? What's over 360?
Okay? Either the measure of the arc, because the measure of the arc and the measure of the angle are the same. Okay? So, in this case, if PA is 8, then my circumference is
16 pi.
16 pi. Is everybody okay with that? Because if the radius is 8, the diameter would be 16. So your circumference would be 16 pi times 95 over 360. and then you're just gonna simplify that fraction in your calculator. The way to do this, we're gonna do same as we've been doing, we're gonna find exact answers and decimal answers. To find the exact answer in your calculator, you're gonna do 16 times 95, and then you have a fraction button to put it over 360. And that should then simplify that,
I need my calculator.
because otherwise you gotta go through and go, okay, 16 has a 4 in it, I can go into that. Okay, we're not gonna worry about simplifying fractions, your calculator will simplify the fraction for you.
Wait,
So, 16 times 90, you may have to hit equals, sorry, 16 times 95 equals, now the fraction button, over 360.
Oh.
How come, it's got the A, the fraction button looks like.
Error.
Weird.
I see. Which one?
Oh, error.
Wait, we're supposed to add the.
I've got it.
I've got errors.
Okay.
I got 38 over 9.
You got 4 and 2/9, which
Yeah.
then you hit the fraction button again,
Wait, what?
okay? You get the, boy, stop. Then you hit the fraction button again, you get 38/9. So that exact answer would be 38, then the pi over 9. Because of the pi that's
Wait, we
there.
hit the fraction and.
Do it like regular.
We're gonna do both. You need this to be the exact answer. Guys, I'm gonna have to come back to it, because I'm now videoing, and I just went around the room and just spent 10 minutes. Okay, so we gotta keep moving. So I will come back and show you. So once you get that 4 and 2/9, okay, then hit second fraction, and it'll change it to the improper fraction for you. Okay, so that would be your exact answer. Then if you needed the decimal answer, you would just do that in your calculator, times pi. Okay, there will be both. You will need to do exact, you will need to be able to do decimal. Okay, so, let's do some of these. JN is a diameter, and JN equals 24.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what does that mean my radius is?
12.
It's
12. Okay, so find the exact values of each of the following. JN, the arc JN,
Oh.
okay? So from J to N, what's gonna be the degree value from J to N? If it's a
180.
180, okay? So I'm going to do, what's my circumference? 24 pi times 180 over 360. This one's gonna be much easier. Usually, I don't know why I started
Are
with
you allowed-
95 degrees.
Are you allowed to plug it into your calculator like that?
Yes, but it's good, I wouldn't, because this one's gonna be much easier. Because what's 180 over 360?
Oh, it's 1/2.
A half, so a half of 24 pi is 12 pi.
That makes so much sense.
Okay, much easier.
Wait.
Okay, sorry for starting with 95 pi. Do you understand how I got 12 pi for the length of that?
See.
Okay? If there are units given, if they had told you JN was 24 centimeters, then your arc measure would be in centimeters. Okay, there's no units given. SN. How do I find SN? Same thing, circumference.
It's 90 degrees.
24 pi times
90 over 360.
90 over 360. Well, what is
That's actually
90
just
over
1/4.
360?
Only 1/4.
1/4. So what's a fourth of 24 pi?
8.
Try it again.
6.
6 pi.
I'm stronger.
Okay? Does that make sense? JA.
Wait, can't you just do like, can't you just do like,
I think my
divided by 180 and then you just divide
The
that?
other way. 180 divided by 360 is
Yeah,
a
that's
half.
fine.
45.
Right. So I'm just simplifying the fraction.
Yeah.
I think it's easier, guys, just to simplify your fraction here. Get a half, and then a half of 24 pi is 12 pi. That fraction is a fourth of 24 pi is 6 pi. Okay, so JA, what am I gonna do? Circumference, 24 pi times What's JA's measure?
150 over 360.
Why 150? Where'd you get 150? You're exactly right.
Because you have 30 degrees and you gotta minus that out.
Right, I'm taking away the 30, so if I'm going from J all the way to A, it's 180 minus 30.
I'm exactly right.
That makes sense? So you can use that 76, but we don't know this measure yet. You know how to find that, 180 minus 30 minus 76. Okay? Everybody see where we got 150?
Yep.
150 over 360. We'll simplify that fraction.
5 balls.
5, simplify 150 over 360.
Oh, I already did 5. I thought this was.
Okay. So, guys, Xander, what do you get when you simplify 150 over 360?
5 over 12.
5 over 12. You could simplify that to 5/12. Okay? Well, now you can simplify 12 and 24 to 2. So 2 pi times 5 is 10 pi. Does that make sense?
Those women shifting.
Go ahead and do those next two. Can you just pause? So, on AJS, the circumference is 24 pi. What is the measure of AJS? 240 over 360. Where did you get that? You could add all the way up or do 360 minus the 90, right? Because I'm stuck AJS, sorry, minus 120,
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense.
So 360 minus 120 or 76 plus, what's that, 64? I forget what that measure. Okay? Same thing, yes.
How'd you get 120? 16 pi.
Because you have to get the 90
The
plus
90
the 130.
plus the 30,
is 72. Oh, yeah.
okay? So if I do 360 minus the 120, get 240. Simplify that, again, put that in your calculator. Okay, 24 times 240 over 360, and you get exact answer this time, right?
Yep.
Get 16 pi. Don't forget your pi for the exact part. And then the last one is the circumference, 24 pi times, if I'm just doing T to A, I'm gonna do 76 over 360. Which when you multiply that out, you got 1824 over 360. Simplify that fraction, just put that in your calculator and it'll simplify the fraction for you. 76 pi over 15. That's why I would not put it in the, hey, I wouldn't put pi in the calculator because it's gonna give you a
Yeah,
decimal
it can
value.
get a little messy.
Right, and it's asking for exact, so
Pi's
just
pretty
leave
messy too.
pi in your answer if it's asking for exact. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Any questions on finding the length? This is not the measure of an arc, it's the length of the arc. Boys, does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, then stop talking.
Oh, he's just strong.
Alright, next, got two more parts of this. We need to find a sector. A sector of a circle is the region bound by two radii and the intercepted arc. So you're finding the area, but you're finding part of the area, because it's only part of a circle. Yours is not shaded in very well, it did not copy, so kind of shade in. This is what we're gonna find the area of. Okay, so do a little shade, because it did not photocopy, it was supposed to be greenish and it didn't photocopy very well. Okay, so how do you think I'm gonna find the area of that part of the circle? But instead of circumference, we're gonna do the same thing we just did, but instead of circumference, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna do area, right? Instead of circumference times n over 360, I'm gonna do area times n over 360. So my formula is area equals pi r squared, that's the area of the circle, times n over 360. So it's the same thing as what we just did, except instead of circumference, we're doing the area. Yes. Correct.
We don't have a formula sheet for this.
Okay, huh?
No formula sheet for the.
No formula sheet for this next test,
Darn.
okay?
Circumference is really hard to memorize.
So, let's do this one. It's gonna be pi r squared times 78 over 360. What's pi r squared? What would be the area of the whole circle? 100 pi times 78 over 360. We are gonna go ahead and find decimals on these. Okay, so do all of this as a decimal, because it'll make your life much easier for area. Okay, so 100 pi times 78 divided by 360.
Oh, I don't have to do that.
You don't have to do the fraction part, just do, multiply it all out. Evan, what did you get when you multiplied all that out?
21, wait, multiply that.
Bro, what are you?
100 pi times 78 divided by 360.
No, 68.
It's 68.06.
Thank you,
If you round.
68
Times
point.
pi.
68 point.
68.07,
68.067.
which rounds up to 0.7 centimeters squared. Area will have, just like it's been having, okay, centimeters squared. Again, on the ones above, had they given you that the diameter had a measurement, then these would just be inches or centimeters or whatever it was. On the ones above. Here, it's squared because I'm finding area. So let's do one more of those. How would I find the area of the sector of the circle? Area equals pi r squared. Everybody okay if I go ahead and write pi times 9? Radius squared, okay, times 165 over 360. So it's just what part of the circle are you finding? Because you're not finding the whole circle, you're finding a fraction of the circle. That fraction is
12.96.
165 over 360.
12.96.
12.96.
It's not like 6.
Okay? No units given, so none needed.
Wait, don't they have to put a pie or no?
We multiplied it out by pi. So go ahead and get a decimal answer, multiply pi in your answer.
So when we do area, like always just multiply the correct.
Area, I will say round to the decimal. For the length of the chord, it will often say exact. Okay? All right, one more, last section. That was a sector. Now we have a region. Okay? It is bound by the arc and its chord. Sorry, it is called a segment of the circle.
Isn't that what we did in our homework?
Please don't. Okay?
Just pay attention.
So, end of next week, we'll see how it's going, potentially next Friday.
Isn't this what was in our homework?
Huh?
Isn't this what was in our homework?
This part?
No, this trial, I swear we had a problem with that.
Don't think so.
No, we have.
Okay, because we weren't doing area. All right, area of a segment. So, guys, how do you think you would shade this in on yours because you can't hardly see it, okay? How do you think you're gonna find that, right, that part? It's just a part of the circle. You're gonna do the area of the sector that we just did and minus out the triangle, okay? So it's gonna be the area of the sector minus area of the triangle. Okay, so let's do this one. So the area of that segment of the circle. Okay, first find the area of the whole sector. That's pi r squared times, I'm looking at 90 over 360. Is that okay with everybody?
And we're doing the multiplying the pi thing, right?
Yes.
That's.
Okay. 10 squared is 100, so it's 100 pi times 1/4. Is that okay? Everybody okay, I simplified that fraction. 1/4 of 100 is 25 pi. So that would be the sector. Now we have to take away the triangle. How do I find area of a triangle? How do I find area of a triangle? 1/2 base times height.
Yeah, it is.
What's the base and the height? They're both 10, right? Because all radiuses are equal, so that's, makes this pretty easy, that part of it, because if that's 10, that's gotta be 10, because all radiuses are the same. Okay, so it's really always gonna be that, whatever the radius is, you multiply them together and times half. Okay, so 1/2 of 100 is 50.
Yes.
That would be your exact answer, but you can go ahead and let's do it as a decimal, because we'll do all areas decimal, just to keep life easier. 25 pi minus 50. What do you get?
28.5.
One more time.
28.54
28.54
feet
feet squared.
Oh.
Okay. Your next page in your note is more practice with all of this. You do not have to do it, but the homework does not have much of this. It has more of just what we were doing yesterday at the beginning of the day, the length of the arc and the measure of the arc. So I would do a few of these. I will put these answers in Canvas. Okay? Your homework is the back of yesterday's, and it's marked which ones to do. I gotta find it.
How is the?
Since you didn't say.
Okay, so it looks like this. It's the back of yesterday's, except on yours I wrote do the evens and then all.